Welcome to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yachts, and today is the first episode of a little segment I am calling Helping the Actor. Amy Manning and I have decided that we wanted to do something for the actor. And what we have come up with in our first episode is formatting a resume. So everything you have ever wanted to know about formatting a resume is in this episode. Enjoy. Okay, we're back. We are starting a new segment, one that I call Helping the Actor. And I have Amy Manning here to talk about formatting a resume. How are you doing, Amy?
Good.
Great. So we have here a basic resume, just a basic resume. First thing I want to ask about is why is formatting important?
Well, first of all, I think we should talk about why resumes are important, right? For actors. And so I think that formatting your resume is something that it is a representation of you professionally, and actors are always looking for their next job, right? So as a professional, an executive, we may be looking for a job maybe 4 or 5 times in our lives, or, depending on what field you're in, obviously. But as an actor, you're always going to be looking for work. And so this is your calling card, and it's always going to be changing. It's going to be fluid. You're going to be hopefully earning more credits and training. And this should be a fluid document that's a representation of you as a professional actor. And therefore, it should be formatted professionally. It should look presentable, and it should look professional. And I think that, that those two things together represent the reason why it needs to be formatted correctly, to show and illustrate that you understand your profession, and that it's presented in a way that illustrates the same platform of the jobs that you're looking for.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between a resume that is, paper, a physical resume, and perhaps an actor's access resume?
Sure. So in Actors Access, which is a platform that your agent or manager is going to be looking at day to day, it's a little different in that you're restricted to a format. In Actors Access, you've got, these linear sections that you can populate, and it's going to reflect basically the same information that's in a paper format or a digital representation resume. But you do have a lot more flexibility on your own resume, like putting it into a Word format or a PDF, where you could, for instance, on this sample resume that we're utilizing, add something beautiful and creative that a casting director that you worked with had to say about you, or something positive that a director that you worked with might have said about you. Anything that you can do to separate yourself, you have a lot more freedom on the personal, private resume. On the Actors Access resume, it is a tool, and it's a professional tool for your agent and your manager, and they need it to be updated. It needs to be extremely consistent. You have a little bit more flexibility here. With Actors Access, it has to be exactly the same format and populated in the way that it is required. So, for instance, on the skills, they're going to ask for specific things. You have some flexibility on the bottom where you can add in some awards, some additional skills, some additional information if you would like. But for the most part, it's very mandated to the protocol.
What are some of the mistakes you see on resumes that you feel actors may not be aware of?
I think the biggest ones are putting in too much information and then putting information in incorrectly. And so the too much information is basically like the old KISS principle, which is keep it simple, stupid. Just put your credits, put your information, put your manager, your agent, the basic contact information, and then make sure that you're outlining your credits correctly. That's the biggest thing that I, see that's done. Putting a character name as opposed to a television credit. They're only for television credits primarily. It's recurring series regular, co-star, and guest star. And that's it. Anything outside of that is either an uncredited credit, which should not be listed on your resume, or featured, or a role. If you put in like Jack or the delivery guy, that doesn't work. So those types of things need to be outlined correctly. In film, you're either a lead or supporting. Some people also do support the role for featured. If you were in a film and you were not a lead or supporting, I find it's really easier just to keep it super simple. And you're either a lead or supporting. You're in the film. You had a speaking part. That, that's every. I think everybody's a little different on that one, but for the most part, those are the two roles in film. And then you've got your theater credits and training, special skills, and then commercial. If you're not really pursuing, if this is not a commercial resume, keep it off. Just, put upon request, because they're really only looking for, conflicts. And why throw it out there? If you're in a Coke commercial and you can't do Pepsi, why throw it out there? Just keep it off, unless it's, it's really targeted at something commercial. You don't need it. Not for theatrical pursuits.
Would you ever put the name of the character ever on the resume?
In theater, you do.
Theater.
But
all right, so let's go through this resume here. We have a little mock resume that we're looking at. So now we are looking at the top of the resume. So here we have John Actor. As you can see here, we have SAG-AFTRA underneath, as well as Actors Equity. So that would always be right underneath that, correct?
This is a sample format. And again, formatting the way that you want it, however you want to design it is up to you. If you're an expert designer and you can make things look beautiful, perfect. But for the sake of formatting, it's really just your name goes at the top. It needs to be the biggest thing on the resume. You need to have your union affiliation, if you have one, underneath it. You need to have your information underneath it somewhere. You need to have your representation somewhere. Does it have to be in a certain place, in the top corner or left corner? No, it doesn't. It just needs to be there. So it's not as important as what it looks like as to what's there. The columning is important under television, film, theater training, special skills. Those need to either be in a 3-column or a 4-column format. And the most utilized is a 3-column format, as shown here.
Now looking at this mock resume, you have also under there, you have the U.S. green card and Canadian passport. Would you put that so up front?
That's a personal choice for me. Yes. It's really important if you have an actor that can work in different countries, that is something that a casting director knows right away, especially if it's, for instance, most often it's a British actor working in the States. We need to know if they're being pitched on something, if they can legally work in the United States. So if they have dual citizenship, it's helpful. There's a lot of productions in Canada. So for this actor, this fictitious actor, I would suggest that we keep that front of mind, that he has dual citizenship. It's really helpful that he can work on productions in Canada as well as the US. So think about it for the use of, what you're doing, what you're going after, what works for your representation, and what casting directors are looking at. They can't hire you if you can't work in the States. If you're a British actor and you have great credits, but you don't have the visa and they don't have time to get the visa, or they don't have the budget to get the visa, whatever those terms are, not a big enough role for them to afford the cost against the visa, that would take you out of the running right away. Those are things that need to be stated up front, in my opinion. It's my opinion.
So, and then right under that, you have height, weight, eyes, and hair. Is there a reason why they want to know eye color?
It has gone away. It has gone away now that a lot of people don't care about any of those stats anymore. They don't care about your eye color, your weight, your hair, none of it. It is always going to be included in your actor's access profile, because we have to know for certain roles. I mean, it's just casting, right?
So like, has anyone never been like, I'm sorry, we were going to cast you, but it says you have brown eyes and we are looking for blue eyes. I
I mean,
mean, like,
it is true. It does come down to that. It does come down sometimes. I
really?
mean, could you
Wow.
put contacts in? Sure, but no, I think we've really moved away from that. Some actors still
Yeah.
have it. I put it in here just for the sake of
Yeah. I still have it on
it's
mine as well. But that's
it's
something I was thinking about. Does it matter? Like, where did
I
eye color come from? It's like,
you
that's
know,
what you want to know.
I think if you really look at it from a casting perspective, yeah,
Mm,
everything's important. I think everything's important,
yeah.
like for a role. But is it that important? Not really. I mean, we've moved away from that, but on a standard resume. But look, it's in your actor's access profile for a reason. You need to know what
Yeah.
somebody looks like. You need to know how big their build is.
Yeah.
You know, if they're supposed to be the son or daughter of another actor, you kind of want to know, hair color and things like that are important. But nowadays
Like for me,
we can change a
yeah.
lot of those things. We can
Like
change
for
your eye
me,
color. We
that
can change your hair color.
yeah. Like for me, like that seems like something that's way more important, like measurements and stuff than eye color. But yeah, it's always on every resume. But that's something I've always wanted to ask is like, why?
I don't,
Why eye
I,
color?
I think people moved
So
away
fun.
from it, honestly.
Yeah. It's like it's just padding now. But yeah, no. So now we look underneath here. We also now we have the manager or possibly an agent's number. Here you put talk a little bit about how that's formatted.
So some agents or managers have a particular format they request. They may ask you to put your resume into their specific format. Some will just give you their logo and say, hey, slap it on there somewhere. It doesn't really matter. I mean, as long as you have your representation listed, and if you don't have representation, then you put your direct contact information. But you
Mm,
always want to, in a professional setting, it's best to have agent and manager, or agent or manager if you only have one or the other,
mm.
their information first, to contact them first. And
So
I think you
now,
format it however you want, or however your agent or manager, if they have a certain request, but just
mm.
somewhere near the top.
Because yeah, like you said, the design isn't so much as important as the
Mhm.
information is. Okay, so now we move on to the television credits. So would you always start with television?
I do. It's a
Mm,
preference, I think. I've heard it both ways, film or television first. I feel as if in casting, again, this is my opinion, it's a it's sort of a standard to figure out where someone is at their casting level, so to speak,
mm,
from television credits. It's the easiest way to determine. You're at a co-star level, you're at a guest star level, you're at a
mm,
recurring level, you're at a series reg level. It's
mm,
easier than discerning through a film, unless it's something like Ford versus Ferrari that is a really big film. Even from
mm,
a supporting role, I fictitiously use that as a lead role, but it's you wouldn't really know how big that role is, right? Just from looking at that. But from a co-star, you have an idea. They're parameters.
yeah.
The parameters of a co-star, even though co-stars have gotten a lot bigger without the paycheck. But that's a network issue and a writing issue. But co-star, you have
Mm,
an idea. Guest star, you have an idea. And it gives you a weight, so to speak, of where that actor is with regard to status and with regard to roles that they could handle. I think for that reason alone, and it's more of almost a marketing tactic for me, I want my television credits first, and I want to establish the network level that they're at and the credit level that they're at. So somebody could easily flip to this page and go, oh, series ride guest star. Okay, got it. NBC
mm,
does this guy, this actor, John actor is established.
mm.
That's all I'm really looking for.
So I noticed that there are three columns. Would you ever want to use, would you ever go more or less?
There's a standard 3 or 4 column formatting. This is the more simple and more often used. This is the typical formatting. The 3,
Mm.
it's really easy. It's really clean. It's easy to read and easy to understand. I feel like 4, it gives you a little bit more of an opportunity to add a little bit more information. Like you could flip another column from network and add a column for director, for instance, under television. Do you really need, I mean, for the most
Yeah.
part, we can fit it in there. It just gives you an idea, of a quick snapshot. And that's what I feel like this is. I think it needs to be
Yeah.
a quicker, cleaner snapshot.
And the question is it is it necessary? Because it's going to clutter up the resume. Whereas 3 columns, it's very clean, it's
Right.
succinct, you see it, everything. So let's go through that. So the first thing on the column we have is the title of the show and a television show. Would you always go with the title?
Always. Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Television,
good.
the show, the role, and then the network. And then if you know the director, it's great. If it adds some cachet, if it doesn't, you don't have enough room, you just put the network. But
Well, I'm a big fan of director XYZ.
oh yeah, yeah, she does great stuff.
She just is great, great director. So now we're looking at the second column, and we have series regular, guest star, co-star, recurring. You also mentioned feature. That is something you could do, but it's probably best to just go with co-star, guest star, recurring, series regular. So let's talk a little bit about,
Well, I want to
series
correct
regular.
that. I want to correct back. I don't want that to go out because featured in television means uncredited. So
Okay.
we don't ever want featured in a television credit.
In a television credit, we would never have feature. Okay.
Never, never. And you'd
Okay.
never have a bartender or guard or anything like that.
Yeah. Because it would be just, it
If you
would
did
be an
not, if you
extra
did not,
background, really.
yeah, if you did not speak as extra background uncredited, we'll leave it off.
Yeah. So series regular, guest star, co-star, recurring. Those are the 4.
Yeah.
Those are the 4. Series regular, it's pretty self-explanatory. A regular on the show, you're on every episode or nearly every episode. You're in the title of the show if you're watching it. Guest star, that would be somebody coming in, right? Not necessarily recurring, but it could be recurring. Talk a little bit. Yeah, let's.
Yeah. Sorry. It could be, the difference is a recurring role could be recurring co-star, recurring guest star. That's the only difference. And you could actually write that out. You could write recurring co-star, recurring guest star.
Yeah.
But for the nature of it to lend itself up, typically people just write recurring, because if you are a recurring co-star, you still want people to know that you had a recurring role, and it still looks better than
Yeah.
than co-star, and you have a recurring role. It could be as little as two episodes, still a recurring role. If it's a recurring guest star, there would be an incentive to probably write recurring guest star. You could write that, and that would still be okay.
Talk a little bit about the difference between guest star and co-star.
Co-star is a small role that is speaking. All of these are speaking roles where you contribute to the overall narrative, but you're not forwarding the narrative arc in any major storyline. So your role is just contributory to the overall show. A guest star is a key character that drives the narrative forward in the story. So it's a much larger role that is a key character to telling a part of the story. So they're different. However, co-stars with better writing have gotten bigger. They just have. It's not a problem, but it's great, to get a meaty co-star. But a lot of times now, when you see a co-star listing and you're pitching an actor for it, you may not know that is a really juicy co-star that almost borders on a guest star, like really, really, really meaty ancillary character that's contributing, but it's not driving the whole narrative. So there may be some really big, good roles that are co-stars now that just don't get the billing of a guest star. So there's a little bit of nuance there, where there's some carryover where they're starting to become, I don't know, similar in lanes in some writing styles, but yeah, a guest star is a much bigger role, and typically it's going to be heavily featured. And if it's recurring, it's a much bigger recurring role than a recurring co-star, which would be a minor character like a guard that you see over and over, or what was a good recurring role on like Scandal, the Secret Service. They've got to be the same people over and over and over, see them over and over again, but they're not contributing to the narrative of the show. They're not like a major guest star that's coming in and having a big storyline. They're just the same characters that you see over and over again, supporting the whole storyline of the show. So that's kind of the difference in a nutshell. Like a guest star would be somebody coming on to Scandal that is a part of a new story and a key part of that story. And then the recurring co-star would just be the Secret Service guy. It might have a line or two here and there, you know.
Yeah, somebody that like you might see every day, like somebody that a doorman that works at the concierge or something. If say the show was taking place at a hotel, and every day they like walk down the stairs. I mean, this would be more in a sitcom or something. And you always saw this doorman. That would kind of be, but they have nothing to do with the plot. You know, that would kind of be a recurring co-star, but it would also kind of become,
Sure. And then in the storyline, you might be interviewing people, like let's just say it was procedural, and there's a person who works at the coffee shop who had an interaction with this serial killer. They had a pretty meaty interaction with the investigator. It's driving that narrative forward. It's a pretty meaty co-star, but after that one scene, it's over. Like, so that's a co-star. That's where the delineation comes from, the co-star and the guest star.
Yeah, I'll give you another example. The show Billions. There's a reporter that was in one of the episodes the last season. There was a reporter that happened in one of the last seasons, and they brought him back for the season premiere. But he kind of has something to do with the plot. He is moving the plot forward, but he's not going to be somebody we're going to see every single episode.
Right.
But so I guess that would be more of a recurring guest star because he does have something to do with the plot. Now we'll move on to the studio thing. Okay, so now we have the third column, which is the studio and the director. Does it matter the preference of which comes first?
Oh yeah, the network comes first.
Network always comes first. Would the network? Because here's something. Most actors aren't going to know about this, but you know, there's the person who, you know, owns the movie from the studio, and then there's the distributor of the studio. Like ABC does television, but Disney kind of owns them. Same as, you know, Hulu. How would you go about that? Would you, like, say you have a show on Hulu, would you go with Hulu even though Disney owns them?
So the easiest answer is whatever's bigger. You know, whatever makes it look better for you. I mean, that's a horrible way to position it, I guess, but it's true. I mean, if it was on ABC originally and now it's on Hulu, ABC's bigger. Put it on put ABC, and that, you know, that's who produced it. But if it was produced by a small little company and now it got picked up by Hulu, then you're not going to list the small company. You're going to list Hulu because it's a lot bigger. So it's whatever the weight is going to look better for you. And you want to go with so
you want to go with, like,
there's nothing dishonest about it. It's completely straightforward. But if it was originally produced from a small company, now let me think of it that way. Now it's on Hulu. Of course you want to list it's on Hulu. Or now Netflix picked it up for distribution. You want to put it on it's on Netflix.
Like everyone knows HBO, you know, and it's it's better to put HBO than, Time Warner
ABC
Company.
production company, XYZ production company. Yeah.
You know?
You want to put the biggest thing that you can get. This is like a
Mm.
marketing campaign. And that's why I always also on Actors Access, when I'm putting the listing the networks and the television credits, I always put them in caps.
So you would always go with the director and you would never go with the showrunner?
Director. It's
Always go with the
preferable.
director. Okay. All right. I think we're done with television. Now we are moving on to film, which would be the second category. Although, as we said, if you wanted to, you could make film first as well. I think it
Mhm.
depends on what your credits are.
Yeah, it sure
You know,
does.
yeah.
It sure does.
Okay. So here we have the first column, and we have the titles of the film. Say it's a long title like Doctor Strangelove or How I Learned to Love the Bomb with like this side title. Would you always just you would never put like the side title to that? You would just always go with the main title. What's shortest?
It depends on the space that you have. If you can give the right creative credit, I'm all about honoring.
Yeah.
But if you got a limited amount of space, then
Yeah.
shorten
Yeah.
it. Shorten it up.
Go with the title. Yeah. Like say you have Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Would you put all of that on there?
I think you have to, because I don't know the Indiana Jones films, but if you just put Indiana Jones, there's so many different
Yeah,
ones, right? I mean,
exactly.
you would have to. Yeah, I think you would want to. I think you want to honor the right title if you have the
Yeah.
room for it.
So for the room and for that. Okay, cool. So now we move on to the second column, which here we only really have two: lead and supporting. Correct?
Some people do say that you can list lead, supporting, and featured for really small roles, where would be like equivalent to a co-star in a television program where you have a line or two and that's it. You're not really contributing to the narrative at
Yeah.
all. I think it's just become commonplace now that it's leader supporting, leader supporting. It's just sort of an
Yeah.
easier way to do it. It could just be that maybe the level that I'm working with, that maybe that's what I'm used to. And
Mhm.
maybe when you are having lower level roles, you would use featured. I don't know. I don't.
Mm.
I can only speak for myself.
Yeah.
I don't really use featured
Well,
because it
if you
sort
can
of
get
gives.
away with,
Yeah,
if
if you
you
could
can get
say leader
away with,
supporting.
yeah, why not just go with that? Why would you want to, lessen it? It's lead or supporting. So that's what you could do, or you could do featured, as we said. But it's probably just best to go with lead or supporting. So now we move on to the third column, which is basically the same as the television column. It's the studio and the director.
Right. And if you don't have a studio, then you would put production company and
Mhm.
director.
Here's something I didn't ask about. What how many credits is too many? I mean, should you keep it that succinct like that for
No,
or
really. So resumes are all built around what credits you have and where you are
Mm.
in your career. So, for instance, if you're just starting and you've got a bunch of all your films are student films, then that right hand side is going to look like university, university, university. Um, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But after you start knocking those university credits off and you're getting real credits, you'll want to
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
getting rid of some of those. And then if you're doing, for instance, a ton of independent films and you only have 2 television credits, then at some point you're going to want to, because you want to try and keep this to one page as much as possible. If your
Yeah.
film credits are just falling off the page, start taking out some of the dupes, start taking out some of the shorts, try to keep it concise in a part. Even, you could put films, comma, partial lists. You can do the same with television. You can do the same with anything, but partial lists. And then just start removing things that aren't really serving you any longer or don't really say, have a wow factor. Like, wow, that's really, you see the same director over and over. You see the same short film, same director. It's a push. I guess
Just
get
pick,
rid of it.
just take that one of that director. And so it doesn't look like it's just the same. So so that's pretty self-explanatory. So now a third column or the third part would be theater, because we said that if it was a commercial resume, you could put commercial, available by request. Because like we said, we want to keep it to one page. Or you could have, if you were a commercial actor and you were doing a bunch of commercials, a commercial resume where I guess that would be the first thing. And then you would kind of maybe put television and film, and then maybe theater would be available by request.
Yeah, it's the same for Broadway. Like Broadway actors, if you look at a wealth of actors in New York, their resumes rather start with theater. They go from Broadway, theater, regional. So it's all on what you're focused on. And so for the purpose of this conversation, this sample resume is really targeted towards someone who's trying to work theatrically.
Now with theater, same thing. First column is going to be the title of the play. Now we get a little bit different here, because now instead of lead or supporting in the second column, we are going to put the name.
You can. You could, if you feel like, most casting directors are going to know already, but if you wanted to say, lead, comma, Brian, you could do that. I've seen theater credits listed differently, depending, and there's a little bit of flexibility here. I think there's a little bit of flexibility here because there's so many roles as well. You could say ensemble, you could say understudy, you could say there's understudy that was performed, understudy that wasn't performed. There are a lot of variances, and this is not my area of expertise. So I don't want to pretend that I know this really, really well, because I don't. But I think there's some variance here that's allowable. But the main focus or format rather is still going to be the name of the production, your role, and then you want to kind of understand how important was that role. Was it the lead role, and is that obvious, or was it a supporting role, and is that obvious, or were you part of the ensemble or understudy? And then where did it take place, and what studio or what theater company?
So say it was an understudy. Would you put like a slash there, understudy, and then maybe performed?
Yeah, there's either parenthetical understudy or parenthetical understudy, and then like I think a P for performed.
P for performed.
I'd have to look that up exactly, but we could reference that somewhere on the website if we need to. But I have that formatting somewhere.
Okay, cool. Okay, so now we have the third column, which now you would place the theater company and the director.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now look at training. Now I see here we have improv UCB. UCB, I assume, is Upright Citizens Brigade. Would you indent that? Would you make it an acronym like that?
These are made up. So I might have pulled that from somebody's exact resume. I would imagine it's that. But for the space, you could either write it out if you have the space, or you can indent it, because most people know that it's what it is. The easiest thing and in the industries that most people are going to know what you're talking about. They're usually going to be in the market, or if it's New York or LA, a primary market, they're going to know what you're talking about. It's not like You really have to be that concerned with them understanding or not identifying it. So if you had an element where you couldn't fit that all in, I think UCB is fine.
So yeah, so you will put this here, Bachelor of Fine Arts in Drama. Now that is a degree, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you
Yeah.
would put, so you would list it in a column like that
Yeah.
under training. Okay. You wouldn't put like the classes. You would just put, you will put that you
No,
have a degree. Okay.
just a degree. Yeah.
Okay. And then the second column is the teacher or the school, as we see with this degree.
Yeah.
And then we move over to the third column, and that is
And this, and with the degree, now that I'm looking at it, because I did this sample resume this morning, just quickly. You could put in the first column, this is just picking small things now, but you could put Bachelor of Fine Arts. And then in the center, you could put drama with a concentration in something, yeah. So under training on this resume, if you're splitting hairs, the other thing that you really could do is the first column could be the basic degree, which is Bachelor of Fine Arts. And then the second column could really be the concentration. So if it were more intense than drama, if it were drama, theater, and something, whatever else that might be, you could put all of that in the middle. And then on the right-hand side, you could put UCLA, obviously, Los Angeles. That's the only derivation there. It's really like splitting hairs. It's just the basic information. Who taught it? Where'd you get it? And where did that happen? So I just wanted to add that. I might have done that a little bit wrong.
Okay, cool. So now we move on to special skills. And here we have native English and Italian speaker. So this person can speak multiple languages. How does this, do you just give it a mismatch like this, or like how does the hierarchy of it set up?
So in Actors Access, it's going to be done for you pretty much. They're going to give you all of these boxes and ask you, can you do this? And if you can, what's your skill level? And can you do that? And you just check a bunch of boxes. And then I would even suggest in Actors Access that you don't take that as a cumulative list and you add your own. If you've got other things that you can do that are not listed there, please, by all indications, add them in the area where you can add information. When your manager or agent is pitching you on things, they're pitching a wealth of people at the same time. And they've got a split second to decide if you can play piano, if you can play percussion, if you can do an accent, if you speak another language. They're just going to scroll through. I'm speaking about your Actors Access account now, and look quickly through your skills to see if you can do it. They may or may not have time to give you a call or a text and say, hey, can you perfect a BBC dialect? If it's not there, you're losing out. So add it. Add everything you could think of. This is a big area for me, is if you can do it, add it. There's nothing that is too much. There's really nothing that is too much. However, for the sake of, again, we're back to this one page, trying to keep it to one page, like a marketing document. Keep it within balance. Try to keep it within balance. So you don't have 9 million skills, and then you've got, if you don't have a lot of credits, okay, amp your skills up a little bit, but you also don't want to go crazy. So try and keep the biggest things that are going to get you work. For instance, dialects, music, special skills, dancing, precision driving, combat. If you played specific sports, if you played at a competitive level in that sport, if you can do certain things, ASL, sign language, is a big one. If you have a disability, that's another thing. It's not a skill, but it's something that would additionally help you get cast. And it's something that needs to be talked, needs to be discussed, needs to be outlined. For instance, one veteran, I think being a veteran is definitely something to list, that you have military experience, you have gun experience.
Yeah.
If there are veteran roles, casting directors would like to honor veteran experience with that casting process. So those are things that, need to be outlined. Somebody's not going to automatically, know that about you. And if I have a vet on my roster that has a hearing disability as a result of an IED in Afghanistan. And because of that, he had to learn ASL. So I use that here as an example. And I kind of group them together. But I've seen that in casting a lot. So I think anything that if you can just think outside of the box of things that would help you get a role, really drive that home. You sing in a band, that's something that somebody else doesn't do. Put it on there. Put it on there.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say though is not a special skill? Like what differentiates that? Like,
I think when you realize you're getting too out there, or one, you got to try and keep it within a balanced range.
But you wouldn't put like I can write with a pencil or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were some consultants at one point in time, and if you do a Google search, you'll find them, but that were telling actors, these little tricks to make yourself stand out with casting directors. And one of those things a long time ago, I remember them saying, write something crazy in your skills that would be a conversation starter. I can touch my nose with my tongue, something stupid and silly. I just don't I think it's a waste of time. I really do. I think it's a waste of time.
Because if you can't do it in the room,
and is there some fun in going outside of the line, coloring outside of the lines? I love coloring outside of the line, but I think for the sake of, drawing the line of where's too far and where's not far enough.
Yeah.
Focus it on getting a job.
Yeah. Speaking of coloring, you wouldn't write like, I can color in a coloring book. Okay, great. We've got a million people that can do that, and that's not going to help.
Yeah. Is there something specific that you can do, and you can do it
that no one else could
better than a lot of other people? Are you a really strong stand-up comedian?
Yeah.
Or can you perfect an accent? If you can't perfect any of these things, if you can't do it well, don't put it there.
I think that's a good way to. Would you put something simple like a driver's license on there, or because he put precision driver, that would
precision driving is a certificate. I mean, it's a certification. So you cannot. They're looking for that. That's something they're looking for. It's like, do you have certification in stage combat? You can't just say, "Oh, I can do stage combat." You have to actually perfected it. You have to have a precision driving permit. There are things that you could put, like, I can drive a manual stick shift, because now that is something that a lot of people can't do anymore. It's becoming phased out. But I think just be very deliberate. As long as you really ask yourself the hard questions and ask yourself, is this meaningful? Is this a skill that I can really perfect if I'm asked to do this? And am I being honest? And that's it.
Yeah.
And, as long as you're doing that, but don't sell yourself short too. I have a lot of people that just put 2 things and that's it. And I'm sure they can do other things. Like, I'm sure there's a wealth of other things that they can do, but they don't list them. They just don't.
I can walk and speak.
Yeah.
2 legs.
I mean, it's funny, and also it's age specific too. I mean, about some specific roles, like, for instance, like, you wouldn't think it's a very important thing to say that you were a cheerleader, or but in younger roles, are there a lot of roles for cheerleaders? Yeah. There are. So if you absolutely would be awkward doing that, then
Yeah.
maybe don't list that.
I mean, if
But
you're
if it,
75, I don't know if it's probably good to put cheerleading.
but yeah, things
Unless it's
like,
David Lynch, then he might need it. He did that
oh
with
my
like a
God.
character on that show.
But isn't there a movie about old cheerleaders? There is, like,
Oh yeah, there is.
older.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so I have to take that back.
There is.
So
Sorry.
no, if you can't, if you are 75, yes, please put you can do
Please put
cheerleading.
cheerleading.
What would you say is, because you've read a lot of resumes, what would you say is the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen on a resume?
um, Pogo sticking.
Pokers.
I don't know. I just random things like that. I mean, is it
Yeah.
cool that you can do it? Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think some resumes, like for instance, listing that skill would be a lot more relevant and that is perhaps why their resume was written that way for commercial skills. So commercial skills, they do want to know everything in the world that you can do because
Yeah.
they might be looking for you to whistle and then jump off, the sidewalk and jump on a pogo stick and do, some parkour into the
Yeah.
McDonald's. I don't know. And those are skills that commercial agents are looking for every single day. For me, those are a little bit
Yeah.
less at the top of the list. But
Yeah.
so is it a crazy thing that somebody listed? Not really. I mean, probably not for them. But
Yeah.
I don't think anything's that crazy. I just think really ask yourself the questions, list enough,
Yeah.
to get yourself competitive, keep yourself competitive and keep yourself in the running for roles, for things that you can do, but don't go over the top. And
Yeah.
especially on the accents, if you can do them, list them. If you can't, make that a
Yeah.
goal for yourself, work on that. And then when you can, add it. But don't assume,
Yeah.
don't put that you can speak French because you think you're going to get 4 lines and you
Yeah.
can
Don't do
figure it
that.
out. You don't
I'll
do that.
figure it. I'll do Duolingo in a day and be able to speak
Right.
French.
Yeah. Because it just
Like,
doesn't
we'll
work.
know. We'll know.
Yeah.
It doesn't, you said you know French, but you can't seem to speak it.
Yeah. I think it's also relevant to say, for instance, if you list something like gymnastics or basketball or football,
Yeah.
that if you played D1 level, that's a lot different than somebody that's, throws the football with their dad in the yard. So
Yeah.
you
Will
give
not be
yourself,
listed.
right, give yourself the credit to brag about yourself. I'm a
Yeah.
former D1 football player. If
Yeah.
you are a beginner in gymnastics or you took gymnastics when you were 5, then you could say, have some gymnastics experience. But if
Yeah.
you can't tumble now, at whatever age you are now, like then you put beginner or don't list it. It doesn't, but if you are a
Yeah.
good tumbler, then you're an
Yeah.
intermediate level, then put gymnastics intermediate level. Like give somebody the
Yeah.
information that they need. Like be as descriptive as you
Yeah.
can.
Okay. So the last thing I see on here is we have a casting director's like recommendation. Talk a little bit about that.
So when you are dealing with this beautiful thing called white space, when you've got some
Mm.
extra space, and that's usually as a result of not having a wealth of credits, and everybody's there at certain points in their career, you need to be creative. You need to get yourself in the room and you need to get yourself noticed. It's your calling card. You have 3 of them. You've got your reel, your headshot, and your resume, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so you've got to be as creative as you can. And
Yeah.
if you've got white space, fill it up, not
Yeah.
so it's jammed and not clean and it looks
Yeah. Don't
nice.
jam up. You said jam everything up here.
Yeah.
It's just like,
If somebody said something great about you and
yeah.
you feel like it really sums up working with you and why you're a great guy and why people should want to work with you, or that you're a young Channing Tatum, or that you have the charisma of Morgan Freeman, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Put that in there and make sure you have their approval to do that. Of course, don't quote somebody without their permission. But if you have their permission, do it. Do whatever you can. I mean, add your picture in here if you want. If you're still gonna, preferably, presumably have it on the back, but put your picture digitally in here. And whatever you feel like is going to give you a leg up. This is a marketing tool. And it's something that you're going to use day after day after day to get jobs consistently. And if you're not updating it, keeping it updated and keeping it fresh, then you're doing yourself a disservice.
Would you put reviews on there? Like if you got a good review from somebody, would you put that on a resume, or is that a step too far?
A review from whom?
Like if say you got a nice review from a critic or something, would you put like maybe an excerpt of that? Okay.
Yeah. Anything at all. Anything that can help you. You could put multiple. I mean, if you're design, you're better at design than I am, which 99% of people are. You could put, a couple. You could put 3 or 4. It's all in how you make it look, and then it's not taking up too much space on the page and overwhelming the content.
But I would say less is more. Don't put,
Yeah, I wouldn't go overboard.
Don't go crazy with design and this elaborate artwork underneath your your resume, and it's like I can't read it.
Keep it. Wait, what do we say at the beginning? Keep it simple, stupid. The KISS formula. It's the best. I think it's just keep it simple.
And I think that's what the band uses too. So is there anything else you would like to say about formatting a resume? Anything that we haven't touched on?
I don't think so. I think the main thing is that it's your calling card. As an actor, you should be looking at your resume at minimum every time you have a new credit and making sure that it's the best presentation, a new credit or a new skill or new training, and it's something to add to the content, and making sure that it's the best representation of you at the time, because you're consistently looking for work. You should always be looking for work. I don't think we need to overcomplicate it and make things so, stress ourselves out about it. But we do need to make sure we have the proper formatting, and it's pretty simple. If we just follow the guidelines. And just
one last thing, would you does it matter the font?
I think it does. I think it does. I think it's got to be very clean and easy to read. So some kind of, serif or just something really clean. If you're having a problem reading it, somebody else is having a problem reading it. Like, don't use a script font. Don't try to get crazy. I think that's the biggest thing, is don't try to get crazy and do all these crazy things. Just let your work speak for itself. Don't be afraid of it. Just be bold, which is what you have to be as an actor, and be vulnerable and put your work out there and let it speak for itself.
And think of it as a marketing tool. Think about, is this going to sell me? If it's not going to sell me, then don't put it on there.
Yeah, right. And while you're building your resume, there's going to be some derivations to that. Yes. You're going to have to embellish certain parts and detract from certain parts, but that will change. And as you if you don't have very many credits, then focus on expanding the part on your training. I think this is a microcosm of what's happening in your real world, right? Like, so you don't have these credits, you're working on these credits, then you're looking at the page, got to fill up the page. So your training needs to be bigger. Your skills need to be bigger. You need more endorsements. Like, all of these things need to be, you got to do more indie films. You got to get more credits. And all of this is going to compound getting more information for your reel, getting more content to build more
Right.
calling cards, more assets. And that's what's going to happen in real life and on the page. You'll pull those old pieces off of your reel as you get better clips, and those will move to the top. Working
All
document.
right.
It's a work in progress.
All right. I think we've one other thing. Would you ever put, sometimes I've seen this, a second picture on the back of a resume? Would you do that, or is that just fall under design where if it looks clean, you can do it? If not,
On the back? What do you
yeah,
mean?
sometimes I've seen like a second like headshot, or maybe they put like a small full body shot in like maybe
Oh,
one of the corners or something.
you mean a digital shot on this side where all the content is?
Yeah, something on either the left or the right.
I,
Or do
I'm
you
not
think
mad. I'm not mad at that. I mean, the old school format obviously is that you have just your content on the front, and then you have the picture, your headshot stapled to the back when we used to go in the rooms and actually have auditions. And if that will return, who knows if it's still included in the casting process. A lot of it's digital now. But to that end, if they're only going to see the front, if you're sending this digitally, why would you not have a photo? If you could have the opportunity to put some photography in a
yeah,
digital, of course, that's what
yeah,
you're in the game of acting, which is, the casting process is partially about what you look like and what roles you can morph into.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm not mad at that at all.
Well, I think if you did, actors access, you have an option to send a photo, send stuff. So then your resume could be necessarily clean. But if you were going out, then maybe you would maybe have the thing, like you said, if we were auditioning in the room,
Yeah, then you would probably just want the information on the front and the headshot on the
something like
back.
that.
And
Yeah.
what the main question to ask yourself is, what format am I sending it in? Am I making the casting director's job easy? It's a number one thing to ask yourself
Yeah.
is, are you making it easy to get hired? And whether you're pitching yourself to an agent, a manager, a director, producer, casting director, think about what their job is, and are you servicing that in the best way that you can? And so, for instance, if somebody were sending this digitally to me, I'd love to have the photography on the front side. I love
Yeah.
it, as well as adding the headshots, because I'd love to see them in high res. They're going to be very low
Yeah.
res in this. That's the difference. You're not going to get the best representation. But if you
Yeah.
only can send a one sheeter, and that's all you have the opportunity, so that it's not separate from your picture, then put it there. But
Okay.
if you're in the room and a casting director has requested that it's done a certain way, then do it the way they want it done. And don't add in extra things because you think it's going to get you an extra hit, or
Yeah.
like then you've gone too far. So respect the process, respect the protocol. But if you feel like it can help you in any certain instance, then do it.
All right. I think we've talked about everything that could possibly be asked about a
A
resume
resume. I think so too.
and formatting.
I think so too.
And with that, thank you for your time. I hope
Thank
this
you.
helps actors. And yes, we will see you next time.
All right. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you. Okay, that about does it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed Helping the Actor, episode 1. And I hope you learned a lot about how to format a resume. I want to thank Amy Manning for her help. As always, you can find me at Justin Yachts. Please like, share, and subscribe, and consider checking out the video on YouTube. And I will see you next time on the DMF.